time once again for Uncle Matt's bedtime story. Hello everybody, it's Uncle Matt and I'm here to read you another bedtime story. And tonight's bedtime story is called Little Frida by Anthony Browne. It is the story of Frida Kahlo. And this story was copyright in 2019. I should mention that this story today we're going to read on World Polio Day. Here we go. When I was 6, I fell ill with polio and had to stay in bed for 9 months. It was extremely painful, and when I eventually got better, I could only walk slowly with a limp. Other children laughed and made fun of me, calling me peg leg whenever I walked past. I tried to hide my thin right leg with 3 layers of socks, but it didn't fool anybody. I was different, and being different made me an outsider. My father was a photographer, and sometimes he let me help him in his studio. I colored many of his black and white photographs. Although it was boring work, I loved being with him. Most days, though, in spite of having 3 sisters, I played on my own. I was lonely, but I quite liked being separate. When I slept, I dreamed of flying. I longed to really fly. I thought about it all the time. For my 7th birthday, I asked my parents for a toy plane. For days I could think of nothing else but flying all around the world. But when the day finally came, these wings were all I got. I didn't want to show my disappointment, so I kept the silly wings on and ran to my room. As I breathed on the window, it slowly became misty with condensation. I drew a rectangle on the glass with my finger, then I added a handle, and suddenly it was a door. I opened the door and stepped through it. I was free. I could run. I ran and ran and ran until I was completely exhausted. I was hot and very thirsty. There in front of me was a dairy. I walked all around the building looking for a way in, but I couldn't see one. Just when I was about to give up and go home, I noticed a little door. I crawled inside. And then I seemed to be falling slowly down into the depths of the earth. At the bottom, a girl was waiting for me. She didn't say anything, not even hello, but in a strange way I felt it was like I've known her all my life. I smiled at her, and she smiled too. The girl silently started to dance. She was a beautiful dancer, and I talked to her while she gracefully moved around the room. I told her all the secret things I worried about, and there were many, and she listened to every word I said. The girl was a stranger, but she felt so familiar. We sat and laughed together. I laughed very loudly, and she laughed without making a sound. We quickly became the closest friends. I'd never had a friend before, and it was a wonderful feeling. And after a while, I knew I had to go. We waved goodbye, and I flew back home, away from the dairy. Across the plains and through the door drawn on the window, I rubbed out the door and ran to the farthest corner of the garden. I sat there and thought about my journey and my new friend. I was alone again, but now I was very happy. I knew that I could go back and see her whenever I wanted. She would be there waiting for me. From that day, I began to paint the girl over and over again. I visited her many times since we met, and in a way, I've been painting her ever since. That's how it ended. I've been painting her ever since. The end. Well, that's all the time we have for Uncle Matt's bedtime story. I hope you enjoyed that story, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.